to hear a revolution in talk radio. Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. This broadcast is being brought to you live on Monday morning, December 29, 2014. It's now slightly after 8 a.m. Central Time in what was once known as the good old USA. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government, now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. During our live broadcast, we invite you to call 646-652-4620 or toll-free 888-773-4496. Before we get started, I would also like to ask our listeners to subscribe to our reminder service by going to our website, libertytalkradio.com, and clicking on the subscribe icon. We promise you will not get any junk mail at all. The only thing you will get from us is when we're going to broadcast, if you're interested in knowing when the next broadcast is going to be. We hope that you do so, okay? And now on to our show. Folks, we are entering a new season. Now, most people just look at this as the end of 2014, the beginning of 2015, New Year's and whatever. But actually, this is the beginning of a new political season. You see, come 2015, we are going to experience a plethora of candidates who are all going to attempt to become, test the waters to see if, in fact, they are eligible candidates for President of the United States. Now, of course, we have the usual contenders, the Hillary Clintons, and now, of course, we have Elizabeth Warren. Now, Elizabeth Warren is interesting because I think she's a very, very sincere person. She's a brilliant woman, I think she's very honest. I heard her in an interview once, and she just appeared to be very sincere and very honest. Unfortunately, she's a communist. Not a communist, she's a socialist. And she doesn't realize it. She doesn't realize that all her goody-goodiness is so harmful to the poor. She's what she advocates is the antithesis of what she is trying to accomplish. Anyway, and I find her an enigma because she is, in one hand, a very sincere, I think a sincere person, very well spoken, and has some excellent ideas. But the solutions are all in the wrong direction. In fact, she should just embrace the free market, and she would be a fabulous candidate. Anyway, but I'm not here this morning to talk about Elizabeth Warren, although I'm captivated by her because she's so smart, but yet so misinformed. It is incredible. And then, of course, we have the Ted Cruz and all those people. I just don't know what to think about all those characters. They all compromise their position in one way, shape, or form. But we're going to hear a lot. We're going to see commercials. We're going to hear candidates come out of the woodwork, organizing exploratory committees, which will try to test the waters to see whether or not, they should be in office and whatever. But, of course, the worst part of this whole thing, in my opinion, is that the average person listening to all this will be urged to do a couple of things. First of all, they all will be convinced that they have to vote. They're going to be urged to vote because voting is your responsibility. to preserve a democracy, you have to get out there and vote and exercise, this privilege that we have, to elect people into office. And then, of course, they want us to get involved, very much involved. Join the organizing committees, campaign committees. Of course, contribute your money. The more the merrier. And don't, as General Salente says, don't forget to vote, and don't forget to vote on Election Day. Now, I'd like to dispel all of this right now. You see, the system is rigged. It's rigged from A to Z. We have in Washington over 1 million people in this complex, either living there or associated or tied very closely in with the federal government, all of whom are making well above average salaries, most of whom, other than the clerks, most of whom are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, none of whom are producing a damn thing. All they are there in Washington to do is to attract money coming in and then allocate it very selfishly to those areas where they would benefit the most. And the only person that has the money to pay them that is us. Whether it be indirectly by buying products from a company that contributes the money to Washington, or through direct contributions or through bribes or whatever the case may be. But you see, it all boils down to us, the voter, the average citizen, paying for the extravagant lifestyles, and we finance the crime and corruption in Washington, D.C. We're almost accessories to the fact. In a court of law, we would probably be sentenced if this was, in fact, determined to be a crime. If the courts determined that the federal government was a criminal operation, now we know it's a criminal operation, but if the courts determined that, we would all be accessories because we are the ones financing this corrupt organization. It's almost as if you were giving money to organized crime. You were financing the drug trade. Well, you're not dealing in drugs. You're just financing the drug trade. Well, if you're financing the drug trade, boy, whoever gets thrown in jail, you go right with them. You get sucked right in. And yet we have this criminal organization called the federal government. We finance it. We're accessories to the fact we should go to prison also. This is the way you should look at your federal government. Now you say, why do I say that? I said, well, it's very simple. There are estimates today that suspect that in order to be elected president, your campaign may have to reach campaign contributions, or the money that's spent on the campaign may need to be somewhere in the vicinity of $1 billion. Now, let me say this again. $1 billion with a B. Now, just think about for a moment. Who, is there anyone you know that has or can raise close to $1 billion to run for president? I suspect you're almost laughing, and you're saying to yourself, this can't be. This can't be. It's not possible. But that's what they suspect it will cost in order to get to become president. Now, where do you think this money is going to come from? The average citizen today has less dispensable income than ever before, than in the past, 50 or 100 years. We are broke as a nation. We are broke. But yet someone will get in office and spend near $1 billion to get there. Where's the money coming from? This is where it's coming from. You see, the exploratory committees don't explore whether or not this person is a viable candidate. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But what they want to find out is how much money can be raised by virtue of this candidate running. So, for example, if they go out and they find out that, let's say, I'm running and there's no way that I'll collect a dime, regardless of how qualified I am, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to be a candidate. But if someone goes out there and finds out that they can raise millions and millions of dollars, they're a viable candidate. Now, who do you think that person might be? Well, the person might be someone who has connections with big ag, big pharma, for pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, right? The petroleum industry, all the main industries that are willing to give millions and millions of dollars so that this person will support their particular goals, their industry. Whether or not it's good for America or not is immaterial. So when a person runs for office and the person who wins is winning with money from the military-industrial complex, from the pharmaceutical-industrial complex, from big agra, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when they get into office, do you think they're going to say, all right, now, let's say, what does the Constitution say, and how do I ensure that the rights of the people are preserved and protected? And make sure that Congress does not get out of hand. You think that's what they do? Well, if you do, you're living in fairy Maryland. Goodbye. There's no hope for you. No, what they do is they couch everything in such a manner that it appears as if they are enacting legislation to protect your rights, but in effect, they are enriching those people who made the major contributions to their campaign. And who pays for that? Guess what, folks? You and I. The average consumer. The average consumer pays products that's produced by big agra. That money goes into the political campaign. It goes back to Washington. It's this vicious cycle, and we're not seeing. There's a big party going on, folks. Gigantic party. There's a great party going on. People having a great time. The problem is that you and I have not been invited. We have just been asked to pick up the tab. And that's why Washington remains so corrupt. Now, those people who run for office who are not within that inner circle, now that doesn't mean that every single politician is corrupt. I've said the system is corrupt. There are very good people in Washington. They get nowhere, and they will never get anywhere because they don't have the big money behind them in order to get legislation passed. Let me give you an example. When Ron Paul ran, there were debates. Debates. I mean, that was a joke in and of itself. And if you notice that, I want to say there are 11 debates, and I could be wrong. There could have been fewer than 11, I think 11 major debates. And isn't it interesting that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the likes of those were always at center stage? Always. Now, you would think that if it was done randomly or fairly, the first one, Hillary Clinton would have been, the all the way to the left, the next one, the next, in other words, there would have been a rotation. So everyone would have been given fair play. Everyone had a position that they held once. If there were 8 candidates and there was 8 debates, that means that everyone held a different position in each one. But no, Romney always in center stage. Where was Ron Paul? The only real candidate for the people. Where was Ron Paul? He was always at the end. He was always, you couldn't even see him because it was off the camera. Every single time. Now, statistically, if you looked at that and you said, well, what's the probability of Ron Paul at random, if there was truly a random allocation of where people stood, what would be the probability that Ron Paul would be at the very, very end? 0. Just about 0, almost infinite. Because you can't have 11 debates and have one person always at the end in the same place all 11 times at random. I mean, the probability is so incredibly insignificant that it never happened. So we're saying that even when visually on television, what we see is a rigging of the system. We actually sit there and spend our time. Now, our time is money. The only thing we have in life, folks, the only constant that everyone on this earth or in the entire universe, if there's people outside the earth, have in common is time. And time is money. There's no difference between time and money. Either you're making money or you're spending money or money is being spent for you. And by you sitting there for an hour or 2 hours and listening to these stupid rigged debates, they're taking your money away. Then after the debates, they ask you for contributions. So they take more money out of your pocket. Now, those people who are ignorant, not stupid, but ignorant enough and gullible enough to go to these campaign parties and cheer and all this other stuff and give their money and buy hats and banners and stuff like that, and go there and give their money and their time and their energy, are being played for a fool. Everyone is. Because the whole system is rigged. Because when the person gets into the office, that person has a master. And that master is not the public. They say the people in office, are governed by consent of the people. That is a joke. That should be that way, but it's not. They are a subject of their masters. And their masters are those people who have made them significant campaign contributions so they can stand there and tell you or try to convince you that they are there doing work on your behalf. Let me give you another example. A bill comes to the floor. The bill is 2,210 pages long, and by the way, this has happened very recently. They're dropped on everyone's desk, and they're given less than 24 hours to review it. Well, you got to figure you got 8 hours to sleep, eat, and get dressed and shave and get to work and whatever, and so you really have 12 hours. To read 2,210 pages in small print that reference other legislation that you couldn't find if your life depended on it, that you really can't understand because it's written by lawyers and by industry insiders, and then they're asking you to vote on it. Now, if in fact Congress was not a rigged game, if the whole system was not a rigged game. If someone gave me something, 2,200 pages, said, Joe, you'll have to vote on this tomorrow morning, I say, fine, thank you very much. Now, it'd be very simple. It'd be incredibly simple. You know why? Because I would put it in my drawer. I would go home, watch my favorite program on TV, Shark Tank and The Profit and things like that, and maybe a football game. Come in the next morning when it comes up to a vote. Very easy. Vote no. I would vote no, zero, zilch. Nothing would ever get passed. And they say, Congress is not doing anything. Absolutely right. Congress is not doing anything, and they shouldn't do anything, because anytime they enact something, no matter how good it sounds, the Patriot Act sounds good, you know. If you knew what the Patriot Act included and what Patriot, P-A-T-R-A, you know, whatever, however you spell it, what it stood for, it's insane. But if by voting against it, what you're saying, the system, you know, I'm not doing this. I am here for the people. But by voting yes, you're voting for those people who are your masters, your true masters, and those are the people who gave the biggest campaign contributions. The system is rigged. And as General Salente says, don't forget to vote. And he's right. And of course, he means that very facetiously. Because your vote doesn't count. And when it does count, it counts against you. Just think, you are voting against yourself. You are voting for your hard-earned money to be taken away, laws to be enacted, that if you don't obey the laws, you will be fined even further, or maybe even put in jail. Or will restrict your ability to make money so that they can protect those people who gave them the largest campaign contribution. That's who you're voting for. Now, I will only vote for a pure libertarian candidate. And I hate the word libertarian. I literally hate it because no one understands it. As I used to say when I was on 1170 KFAQ, I said, they say, why don't you say you're a libertarian? I said, because, you know, here in Oklahoma, when you say libertarian, people, you know what they think of? They think that, there's a guy, a libertarian. He must be one of those lesbian guys that like to dance in the street in the dirty underwear. I mean, that's what they think of. They have no idea what it means. In fact, I want to go further and say that if you ask a Republican, what is a Republican, you couldn't get an answer. A conservative, you couldn't get an answer. A liberal, you couldn't get an answer. Progressive, you couldn't get an answer. They can't answer your question. Well, you know, we belong in there for fight for the people. They have no idea what they're talking about. They just tag onto a label, look at something that sounds good, and then they follow it. And we're late. We got to stop for a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We got a couple of more issues to discuss. Hold on.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty. Liberty Talk Radio.
Hi, folks. We're back. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. We do invite you to call 646-652-4620. Really, and if you disagree, please call. Because I want to hear opposite opinions. I'm convinced I'm correct. I mean, I would love, believe me, I would love to be wrong. I would love to be proven wrong. Please call 646-652-4620 or toll free 888-773-4496. The next subject I want to talk about, and it's going to intertwine with everything else I've been talking about, is a situation with Cuba. Now, I cannot understand this embargo with Cuba. Why? I mean, first of all, no government has the right, no government, I don't care if it's our government, the world government, I don't care who it is, no government has the right to tell me who I may associate with. Freedom of association, is an inalienable right, or some people say unalienable right, same difference. An inalienable right is one that's inherent. It's like the law of nature. And a government doesn't say, well, we're going to modify the law of nature. You can't do that. Now, they try to do that, and whenever they do, it always turns out to be a mess. Cuba is an excellent example. If I want to associate with someone in Cuba, if I want to do trade with them, if I want to go down there and visit somebody that I know there, the federal government should have absolutely no say in it whatsoever. Because now I have to trust the government in that what they're doing is the right thing. And our government has never done the right thing. Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Libya. I mean, I can go on forever. And spare me the Pearl Harbor crap. Not that I don't sympathize with the people who died with and the families that suffered because of that, but we were just as much to blame as anyone else. And I won't get into that now. But the government never does the right thing, and when they do something, they always do it with some sort of intention that you will never know about, or you'll learn about it 50 years afterwards when someone finally, from the Freedom of Information Act, and does some research, and eventually it comes out, and you go, oh my God, that was terrible. If I want to associate somebody, the government should have absolutely no say. I live in Oklahoma. What if the government said, I'm sorry, people now in Oklahoma cannot associate with those people in Kansas? I mean, what's the difference? They say, oh, well, that's all the United States. What difference does it make? It makes absolutely... I mean, we have these... We put up these fences and these borders around us and saying, well, this is Cuba, this is Puerto Rico, they're different. No, there's no difference whatsoever. None. Zero. Zilch. If I want to trade with someone in Cuba, the federal government should have absolutely nothing to say about it. Because if the government's saying they are there to protect my freedoms, then let me be free to trade. Oh, you can't do that. Well, what if I did trade with it? What harm would it do? What kind of harm would it do to anyone if I traded in Cuba during the past 40, 50 years? Well, you'd be helping the Cuban people out, and that would be bolstering the communists. Well, so what? What if the Cuban economy did very well? Wouldn't we if we did it, we would be benefiting by it. We wouldn't be trading with Cuba and losing. We would be trading with Cuba so we could benefit. And it's usually both people benefit by it. And when both people benefit, all the political barriers fall. Dictators fall. Because you cannot have a free society with free association and have a dictatorship. And the problem we have here is that we have Castro, who's a dictator, and he's a dictator because he overthrew the previous dictator, Batista, that was a puppet government for the United States. But we don't want to discuss that. It's like that. Don't tell me any bad news. I just want to know the good news. I just want to know. I just want to know what I want to believe. So here we have someone who, at least ideologically, thought he was doing the right thing. He said, "Screw the United States," because they've been supporting a regime that's been abusive to the people, and we're going to say now they were abusive as well. They had a different ideology, and they aligned themselves with Russia. Well, what if we allowed the Cuban people back then, instead of propping up Batista, electing their own people, and we had free trade with them? There would have been no embargo, no Russian troops, no Russian weapons being sent to Cuba. And what if they were sent to Cuba? They said, oh, they'd be rockets with atomic bombs on them, with nuclear weapons in Cuba. So we have nuclear weapons all around Russia. I mean, why can't they do what we do? If we could put nuclear weapons all around Russia, and we have them literally on the Russian border, we have nuclear right on the Russian border, why can't they? Oh, it'd be dangerous. Well, what do you mean? They're dangerous and we're not? I mean, we don't kill anybody? But let's get back to free association. It's a law of nature. I have the right to associate with whomever I want to associate with. And no government has the right to take that away. Anytime a government has an embargo, they can embargo all they want. But the people that they say are free should be free to associate with that country. Now, the problem is that we have to trust that what the government is telling us is the truth. Now, this is my last point. When the government, now if someone invaded us, let's say we're just not bothering anyone. I know this is not the case because we bother everyone, but let's assume we're not bothering. And all of a sudden someone invades us, right? And we fight back. Well, you don't have to worry, you don't have to be concerned about politically what position the government is taking and what they say. We all get our guns, we get out there and we start defending ourselves, right? But when a government says, oh, this country is bad, this is all the bad things that are happening, we need to send out troops there to help these people, we have to trust a government that is in office under a rigged election, whose objective is to make as much money as possible for those people who made campaign contributions, think military-industrial complex, brings people over there, our soldiers over there, under a pretense that we're saving the world, when in fact we are just emboldening the military-industrial complex. So we have to trust a rigged, corrupt government that what they are telling us is right. And so we send our young men and women over there to get blown to pieces psychologically and physically, come back and are ignored, can't find a job, can't work, have a miserable life. Many commit suicide, because we trust the government in what they say. Well, in one hand, we say we don't trust the government at all. Most people say, no, we don't believe what the government says. But when the government says, well, this nation is bad, and we have to send our men and women to die for this cause, we say, oh, no, that we believe. What kind of logic is that? That makes no sense whatsoever. Oh, we don't ever believe them, but when it comes to war and sending our young men and women over, many of whom will come back scarred mentally as well as physically, have a difficult time assimilating in society. Families are broken apart. There's no good in this whatsoever. And the cost to the average citizen is phenomenal. Well, I think it was Gerald Celente that said that in the last $1.1 trillion that they appropriated, for the funds to keep the government going, $800 billion of that went to military or some sort of affiliated military complex, line item. Now, for a government as corrupt as that, who get elected under the most rigged conditions you can think of, and then we believe them, and then when these people come back, they haven't served their country. They've served the bankers. They've served the military-industrial complex. They has nothing to do with us whatsoever. It's as if we're on a different planet. And then we tell them we are convinced. And I'm not against the people. I'm not against the soldiers. I feel sorry for them because they don't know what they're getting into. Every soldier should listen to this program. Soldier, sailor, Marine, everyone should listen to this program. And Ron Paul had something like 80% of the people in the military voted for Ron Paul. He was anti-war. But once you're in, you're in. You can't just say, I decided not to go. Forget about it. I'm going for a drink. No, you can't. You get in a brig. You get dishonorably discharged. You'll never find a job in your life. And then the sad part is that when the soldiers come back, both the men and women, and I'm saying this for them, not against them, for them, is people say to them, thank you for your service. Well, they know they didn't serve the country. Most of them know that. Most of them realize when they're over there, they're going, oh, God, what did I get myself into? Many come back. I mean, you got to hear the comments. And you go on YouTube, listen to soldiers talk about when they were there, what they were up against, who they were fighting. People say, the people of Afghanistan, if we didn't go over there, it would be terrible. Could you imagine people living in the back hills of Afghanistan, 8,000 miles away from here, who have to fight day and night just to eke out a subsistence living? When they get up in the morning, their objective is to have enough water to drink, enough food to eat, to make it to the next day. Could you imagine these people? Now, this is the population, right? They're living in the hills where there's usually little water. There's the crop rotation. The crops are very limited. Money is insignificant. They live on $1 a day if they have that. If they ever make that much. Could you imagine them sitting around during lunchtime saying, I think my major concern is that I hate, America's freedom. Why don't we go over there and bomb them? I mean, just think of the idiocy. But yet, with all that idiocy, you know who the idiots are? We are. Because we believe it, because that's what our government tells us. There's got to be something inherently wrong with us for us to believe all this crap. We have rigged elections, Then after the rigged election, we know that there's not a good thing that anyone can say about a politician, but then we vote for them. Then we send our sons and daughters to get killed for them. When they come back, they get treated like crap. They can't even get medical attention half the time. Sometimes they do. When they get it, they get some very good medical attention. Many times they get nothing. They're ignored altogether. And so many come back psychologically damaged that they can't function on a job properly. And they're very lonely. Many commit suicide. Some commit suicide before they come home, and yet you never see the statistics on that. But yet, it's because these people out in the 8,000 miles away who couldn't find the United States on a map if you paid them $1 million, their only concern is to destroy the United States. Now, I'm not too smart. I have to admit, I really wish I was smart. I know some guy, I have some friends that are really very, very smart. I'm not. But man, I'm not that stupid. And I can't believe the United States, the population of the United States, is that stupid that they would fall for that. You know, folks, it's almost time for this program to be, concluded. But I really wish, I want people to send me email to comments@libertytalkradio.com. And tell me I'm wrong. But please, just don't tell me I'm wrong because, man, you're an idiot, man, geez, you suck. No, forget that. No, don't bother. I don't have time for it. I'm busy 24 hours a day. I work 24 hours a day. I'm going on 72. I'm busier than ever. I'm just too damn busy to fool around with garbage. Tell me where I'm wrong. Call me. I'm surprised. We have no calls today. I am really surprised. Well, maybe because it's the middle of the holidays. I don't know what's happening. And I'm not even sure I have to have our computer people check everything out to make sure everything's working because the call switchboard is blank, which is never blank. So I'm not sure if things are working properly. Hopefully they are. But, please tell me that. Give me a logical explanation as to where I'm wrong. There's no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. They take sides to entice us to vote. But no matter which one you vote for, their masters are the same. The pharmaceutical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, you name it, the agricultural complex, agricultural complex, they're all the same. They all are getting paid from the same. If the pharmaceutical industrial complex gives somebody $100 million and gives nothing to the other guy, the guy who gets nothing doesn't stand a snowball chance in hell of ever winning an election. So you have a rigged election, you have politicians, and the politicians are probably held in the lowest esteem ever, but yet when they want to send our sons and daughters, to get killed for some inane reason, we can't really understand why, but we send them gladly to get killed, and we're proud of them. There's something wrong with this nation. Gerald Saleh says that there's 5 stages from peace to world war. And it goes like this. I mentioned Gerald Saleh about 4 times this time. I don't know why, but I got him in my head for some reason. But you have a crash like we had in 2008. Then you have a recession, which we had. And we're still in, by the way, regardless of what they say. Then you have currency wars, which we've already been through. Everyone's devaluing their currency, negative interest rates, debt to GDP ratios are stratospheric, okay? And then from currency wars, you have trade wars. Guess what this oil thing is? When we went from $110 a barrel to $50, $55 a barrel. That's trade wars. And from trade wars, you have world war. And look at the world around you. It looks like we may be entering a world war. Okay, well, enough of all that good news. With that, I really wish I had better news for you, but I want you to think and do write to me. Comments at libertytalkradio.com. I'd like to hear what your comments are, please. Let's see if we can get this thing going. Here we go. Thank you very much for listening. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support. We'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments at libertytalkradio.com. Folks, you are either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano, Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.